This is Joseph Carpenter. Today is the 31st of January 2025, and I'm interviewing Mr. Jerry Vick. This interview is taking place at Terrell State Hospital. It is sponsored by the UTA Department of History and Geography and is part of the Terrell State Hospital collection. Thank you for agreeing to be interviewed today, sir.
Nice being here.
Tell me a little bit about your background before you came to work at Terrell State Hospital. Where are you from? What did your parents do? That sort of thing.
I was actually born in Terrell in September of '49. And at that time, my parents were living in a place out at the airport. My mother stayed at home. Dad worked for Ranger Boots. People might not remember Ranger Boots. It had the distinction of being part owner by Roy Rogers there. And Dad worked there and then moved to Wichita Falls. I must have been around 3 to a different job there, I think with the same company. And we lived there until I was 4, and then we moved to Fort Worth.
Okay.
I started public school in Fort Worth. It was Fort Worth Polytechnic Elementary. I was there 2 years, then we moved back to Terrell, and I completed my high school here in Terrell. There. At that time, I started working out at Terrell State Hospital in the summer of '67. They had summer work out here, and so I'd work, make money, and then I attended college. At that time, it was Henderson County Junior College, which is now it's Trinity Valley.
Okay.
And went there 2 years. Ultimately, I started at East Texas State University and Commerce, and then didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was taking a lot of chemistry, physics, math classes. They told me, "Oh, you need to get into engineering or something, make a lot of money." Well, obviously, my path went a different direction.
Right.
But I was got to taking sociology and psychology courses and really enjoying them. But then I took a hiatus from that and decided what I needed to do. Ended up listening into the Army National Guard.
Oh, okay.
And it was in '71. And for a while, I wasn't sure what I was wanting to do. Ultimately, I decided to go back. I liked a couple of semesters of finishing college. And so worked out here and working on the ward, working in the evening shift. I would come to work at 2 and leave at 10. Drive to Commerce that morning, get back in time to eat, and come back out here. And
what were you doing for the hospital during those first years you were working here?
First year I actually worked in the kitchen.
Okay.
It had a split shift that I was able to work. It was a morning shift, then I'd get to go home for lunch, and I'd come back for the evening shift. And at that time, we would they had dining rooms, and it actually is the old white buildings over here, A, B, and C. And I would go up to A3, and they had a dining room up there, and I'd set the plates out and serve the patients, and then go back downstairs and help them on the first floor, and then go back up later and clean.
I see.
Did that. The summers after that, I ended up working in maintenance, and that was 8 to 5. Did different things, worked some in the paint shop. Sometimes we'd get assigned to, like one time I got assigned a week to cleaning air filters for the air conditioning units. And it was a lot of fun, and I learned a lot of things I was able to use later on in life. When I got married and built my house, instead of hiring somebody to paint it or to rescreen my screens, replace windows. So I learned a trade that became useful, just so I could do stuff on my own.
Right.
But
what motivated you to work at the hospital in the first place?
A lot of my family worked out here.
I see.
At one time, both my grandmothers worked out here. My dad worked out here for a while. My uncles worked out here. Mother worked out here. Started out in the laundry and then later moved to the beauty shop until she retired from out here. So it was an opportunity. I knew a lot of people out here, people I worked with. Terrell's a small town, so I knew a lot of people in maintenance anyway from when Dad worked out here as an electrician. I wished I would become an electrician because he made more money than I did after I graduated. So, but actually, in the process of taking the classes before I went back to school, I enjoyed took classes in social welfare, marriage and counseling, and I said, this is where my heart is. And so I wouldn't change a thing. The classes I took, I enjoyed. I have no practical use for the chemistry, and I took calculus, but I was able to help my kids later on in high school.
That's great.
Yeah.
Did you have any mental health training prior to coming to work here that first time?
Not really. I did one job I did, and actually, but when I first started, I worked at a funeral home in the evenings, and from that, you got to feel of needing to be compassionate and understanding and listening. And I was just 18 years old, but I felt that was a remarkable time because you could understand people's grief. And I think that was maybe a building block when I finally decided I was going to go back and become a social worker.
So when you started here, you said your parents had worked here before. What were your initial impressions as you worked here? Was it what you expected?
Yes, because I knew people that worked out here and talk about what they did. I was familiar with how things were on the ward, although when I worked summers, a lot of times it required us, being in maintenance in the summer, you sometimes have to go onto the ward, and you would see clients on there. I think the most important thing that I got in working out here before I came into the social work department was the experience I had working direct care with the patients. In the past, we've had some social workers start out here, have not had any experience dealing with psych patients. One lady, after interviewing and taking a tour, she broke down crying. It's like,
wow, really?
I'm thinking to myself, she's going to have to learn a little bit. And in time, she became a very, very good social worker. But by working direct care, I had already experiences, obviously. In the past, I'd been hit, I'd been spit on and things. And I tell people, do not personalize what's going on. I said, but they called me something. I said, well, are you? No. I said, you have to understand, they're ill. And one of the worst patients I ever had in my life became the very best patient when they left. I had a couple of patients apologize to me for their behavior. And I told them it was your illness. I jokingly a lot of times tell the clients they can understand, I said, I want you to promise me one thing. When you leave, I don't ever see you again. And I said, we want you to be successful and not have to come back here. But obviously, if they do, we welcome them back. And our doctor that I work with will tell them, if you need to come back, let's see what we can do for you.
Right. So what were your friends and family's impressions, I guess, or reactions to your making the decision to get your degree in social work and come back out here and work as a social worker?
Well, I think they were all supportive of it. Like I said, both my parents worked out here. My two grandmothers worked out here. all my uncles worked out here at
Wow.
one point in time. So they understood. They also understood because I had told because I was married by the time I finished my degree, and understanding that I'm not going to make a wealth of money.
Right.
But I tell people if you can work out here and live on your income, and when you retire, you can have a good life. Unfortunately, I haven't decided to retire yet.
So how did you meet your wife?
Oh, goodness. She was a friend of a girl I was dating.
Oh.
And they had became acquainted with each other. I don't know if you're familiar with Rainbow Girls. It's a Masonic organization for girls.
Okay.
They also have Demolay, which is for boys. And my girlfriend joined the Rainbow Girls in the process, made friends with my now wife, and so at some point in time, my girlfriend decided, well, I don't think this is working out, and so we tried to part amicably. There's some stuff she had that I needed. And getting to her house, I had to go by where my wife was living with her family.
Okay.
And I picked it up, and on the way back, she was sitting out in the driveway. Of course, I had talked to her some. And so I got out, and we chatted a little bit. And so she liked fried cherry pies with ice cream. There was a little place, the Dairy Mart in town,
Okay.
and Dr. Pepper. So we went there to eat and talked, and then I asked her out about going to the movies, and so it just kind of grew into that. She was a redhead.
Okay.
I thought that was a wives' tale from watching Maureen O'Hara movies, but it is not.
The fiery redhead. Is
Fiery
that
redhead. No, it is. Oh,
oh my goodness! And how long have you been married?
Last August was 52 years.
My goodness.
Yeah.
So what's the secret to that?
Time, patience, and perseverance.
Yeah, I guess so.
Well, it's, we fight and argue, but never seriously. I'm not as flamboyant as she is.
I see.
I'm more quieter.
Right.
I guess our biggest thing she's had to learn with me is that she'll want me to make a decision quickly, where she does things spontaneously on the moment. I have to process things, and I've reminded her every time you forced me into something quickly, it didn't turn out well.
So, can you describe a typical day for you working here at the hospital?
Well, I won't. In general, right now, how it is, I'll go back when I used to work an 8 to 5 schedule.
Yeah, please.
Generally, I'd get here at 7:30 in the morning. I would check what missions we had come in, if they were assigned to me, and then I would go to the ward, and I would meet with a client and talk with them, get information about the family if they have family involved, and from that, I would contact the family. I would do an interview for a social assessment. And then when I first started out here, we hand wrote everything out here.
Right.
There was only one copier for the whole hospital.
Oh my goodness.
The computers did not exist.
Right.
Everything was on electric typewriters. The Cenopool typed our assessments up and used carbon paper.
Oh, yes.
I got to talking about carbon paper one time, and somebody said, "What is that?" And I tried to explain to him what it was, and I said, "Just forget it." It's when I was my younger days.
Yeah, so let me back up a little bit and say, so you got a master's degree in social work?
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
That's a long story, too.
Well, let's go there since I opened that box.
Okay. No, I graduated. There was not a lot of places to get a social work degree at that time.
Okay.
Commerce didn't have one.
Oh.
UT Arlington did. Then I think they were starting to think about getting one there, And actually, I was going to go back. Several of us that did not get our master's were going to go back to commerce, but it never came to fruition for some reason. We also looked at UTA going at nights, and it never worked out. I thought about no, because my wife was not quite supporting us, but I was not making as much money as I would have, and I thought, no, I'm not going to put that burden back on her again. It wasn't, and there wasn't a lot of masters out here at that time degree.
Well, when was that? How long ago was that? What year was it?
This was 75.
Okay.
Yeah. As time went on, they got to hiring more master's level people, and we have a lot of, there's still just the bachelor's level people.
So were you kind of grandfathered in, if you will, as far as
at the time when I first started working out here, I was working on a Dallas County male admission ward, and then I guess the love of my life out here was when I transferred to the multiple disabilities unit, which was for dual diagnosed clients with both a mental illness and a mental retardation, which is now IDD patients.
Yes.
And I love that ward. And in the process of it, it initially started out being certification in social work. So we all applied and sent it in, and we got it back. And then later on, they went to licensure. Well, a very close friend of mine here became the director of our unit, and it came time for this to come up. The very first time it was licensure, he looked at the criteria to be a licensed master social worker, and he told me, "Jerry, you're going to do this?" I told them I don't. But I never went back to get my master's. And he says, "You meet the qualifications. I'm going to write the letter of recommendation." And so I filled it out, and I gave it to him. He sent it in, and that's how it started.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. And some people ask me, I said, I feel like I feel bad about that. But as time went on, I looked maybe at going back, and then my wife just finally decided to go back and get her degree.
I see.
And so I tell people I have a master's degree through her, because
Right.
when she would have to write all these papers up working on her master's, she would ask me things. She had to watch some movies and had to write something up. And in the process, she would ask my opinion, because I'd watch them with her, and I would give her suggestions on that. And so somebody asked me about who's most intelligent. I said, my wife, of course. I said, she's got a double master's, and master in reading, master in education, and of course she married me.
Yes. Yes, that makes her smart just in that. Right?
Yeah. So that's how that came about. And so in the last 20 years, I've been working on the geriatric unit.
How long?
20 years.
20 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how do you like that versus working with the IDD clients?
I enjoy it. I enjoy working with the older population. As the years have grown by in that time frame, I'm slowly becoming older than most of my clients.
Right.
I think I have about 4 that are older than I am. Yeah.
And they're on the geriatric.
And they're on the geriatric, yes, sir.
Yeah. How does that make you feel?
I don't think about it.
Right.
I don't think about myself as being, I'm 75.
Right.
I don't think about age that way.
Right.
I'm healthy. The hospital has the fountain run that they do every Jubilee that raises money for patient benefit fund, and I run it, and I've survived it.
Right.
Although the last couple of years, my wife told me, he says, you were running really slowly, because she'd drive up there and watch, and I said I wanted to finish. and I told him, I said, I think I'm going to do it one more time.
One more
time, just to run it. But it's a good money goes to a good cause,
Right.
and it's fun being out there with everybody.
Right.
With
Creates a sense of camaraderie.
yes, it does.
How would you describe the work environment and culture here at Terrell State Hospital?
It's ever evolving. I've seen a slow movement away to some of the stigmatism of mental illness,
Okay.
but not near what most of us in the profession would like to see. I remember one time somebody was asking me, they have a whistle out here over the boiler room. They used to blow that at noon and at 5. Noon because that was lunch hour, and 5. People in town thought somebody had escaped. And I told them, no, I said, isn't it peculiar that our patients run off right at 12 and right at 5? I said, no, it's just the signal, the lunch hour, and then the quitting time for those that worked 8 to 5.
Right. Wow.
And I've been through lots of administrations out here, and I see things moving in a positive direction. And I hope after I'm gone, it'll continue to move that way. I don't think we'll ever get completely away from the stigmatism of mental illness, but I think it's maybe a better understanding. The communities, I think, are trying to do a little bit better job than when I first started out here. Our staff tries to really be a very positive advocate for our patients and to advocate what's good for them, try to give them a sense of self-direction. I always tell people, I says, if there's something you know that's going to be best for them, present it in a way so they believe that it's what their idea. And in a way it is, because when you discuss it, they may make some changes in it, but in reality, it's a good plan. And so you have to take ownership. You know, that old saying, a man convinced against his will is not convinced at all.
Right.
So we try to do this so that they are a part of what decision-making plan we're working with them.
What have you seen are the changes in the types of patients that come out here? Have you seen a change from one type of patient or a particular diagnosis to another? What changes have you seen?
Well, out here, one of the biggest changes we've seen is a larger influx, and I think it's a trend of forensic patients. Those that have been arrested and found incompetent to stand trial.
I see.
And of course, that's you got a lot of mentally ill people that are in jail and in prisons because of that. So we probably have a very excellent forensic program out here, and we have forensic patients on the geriatric unit, and we work to try to get their charges dropped if they cannot meet competency, and develop a plan for them that they'll be successful when they go out. I guess one of the things I've seen is, and I don't know if it's an increase in the diagnosis out here, or it's, as I had one of the psychiatrists I worked with said, a lot of people that were diagnosed as schizophrenia or misdiagnosis were bipolar. And so I see more of that diagnosis now than I did when I first started out here. Of course, she said, if you're going to have a mental illness, bipolar disorder is the best one to have.
That's the way to go.
Yeah, but she said, those that are in a hypomanic stage, they're very successful.
Right.
And as long as they don't become full-blown manic and spend all their money, that does seem to be the case.
Can you share some memorable experiences or stories from your time here at the hospital?
Good, bad, or ugly?
Doesn't matter. Anything that you feel like sharing?
Yes. A lot of my fond memories on the multiple disabilities unit. Seeing clients, we had sheltered workshops for those. We would literally close the unit down. We had a lady that had property on Tawakoni, and they had a boat, and we would just, no matter how bad someone was doing, we took everybody out there and spent the day.
Wow.
And they fed them. Those that were able to go on the boat rides. And we had one client that tried to run away, or shall I say, tried to swim away.
Oh my goodness.
Obviously, when we were out there, we had to have, some of our staff had to be trained as lifeguards, and I was trained in water safety. And as the client got out in the water, all of a sudden, two of our staff went out there and got her and brought her back. Of course, they got soaking wet.
Right.
But that's kind of strange because it wasn't it was a UD attempt. I said they tried to swim away and not run off.
So you had, the campus was more open back when you first started than it is now? Would you say that?
A lot of the patients had grounds privileges. If they were doing really well, they would be able to be let off the ward, and they would sign out, and they had to sign in at a certain time. And if they didn't, they would get their privileges revoked.
I see.
Now on the multiple disabilities unit, we would actually write contracts with the patient about setting that you need to meet these goals and you can get your outside privileges. And then once they did, we were advocates. We would have a change of shift meeting and we would write things on the board. And if I had a contract with a client, I would bring it up and I said, this is the goals, and checked them off. And a lot of the nursing staff could validate that, and we all would vote. And most of the time they would get their privileges that way. Some of them had work assignments out here. When I was working summers out here in the kitchen, we had clients that worked in the kitchen alongside of us. Now, the downside to that is in a month they got $4 a month pay.
Oh my.
Yes. Years later, wage and hour laws changed up, and they started getting paid minimum wage for their work. But I never heard them complain. The patients, they were happy to get $4, and they'd go to the canteen. Sometimes they would buy tobacco. They were smoking on campus.
Okay.
I guess one of the funniest things out here is when they decided to go smoke free. And so they implemented a plan to gradually decrease the number of smoke breaks until the last day they got down to one smoke break, and then they ended. I not jokingly say, but honestly feel like our patients did a lot better with it than the staff.
Is that right?
Because staff weren't supposed to smoke on campus either.
Oh, okay.
So
the patients dealt with it. But,
I thought they did, yeah, because I know some of the staff cheated.
So what are some of the greatest challenges that you've faced?
I guess through the years, one is finding good alternate placement for your patients. Back in the 70s, there was not a lot out there. Unless you had a client that had a lot of physical needs and could go to a nursing home. There are things that got better. One of the good programs they implemented out here, it was in the 80s, was the Fair Weather Program. And actually those clients, we had a unit, which is actually where our Good Eats is, some people use on in canteen, and they brought the patients together. They did janitorial work here on the grounds, and collectively, when they discharged to Dallas, and the people working with them in the community had already prearranged to having janitorial work at businesses.
I see.
And so
that's great.
That went really well for quite some time, and then eventually phased out altogether. So I thought that was a really good thing for our mentally ill patients.
Other challenges that you can think of?
Oh, probably that's the most significant one.
Tell me about a bad day. Just one bad day.
One bad day, a patient dying. And although it's a bad day, sometimes you understand that sometimes it's for the best.
I understand.
And I hate to keep going back to the multiple disability unit. We had a client that had no family involvement and was with us quite a while. She could be exacerbating at times. And when she was diagnosed with cancer, usually that's medical issue, they would go up to our medical ward. But our staff on the unit, and that unit had a family atmosphere, not only with our staff, but the clients as well. The staff volunteered for Betty to stay on our ward in a room, and they rotated watching over her until she passed. And then when she died, our unit director went to the funeral home, planned her funeral, and she's buried in our cemetery out there. That in a way that was probably the best. As the cancer progresses and you can't do anything for her, it's difficult. So
right.
Yeah.
What about the best day you've had at work?
When a client thanks you for helping them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I tell people, I know we have to earn a living, but this has fringe benefits. Seeing a patient smile at you, having families appreciate what you've done. But in turn, I tell my families, I appreciate that you're there for your family member. So those they don't have a monetary value there.
How do you go about building relationships with your clients, your patients? They need to come to trust you. How do you go about making that happen?
Tell them the truth. Yeah. If they want you to do something for them and you can do it and you tell them, you do it. But if it's something that you can't, you be honest with them and tell them, I can't help you with this. But let's see if we can have some alternatives to work with, and we'll see what we can do. But you have to. That's that. If you ever fail on that, sometimes you can lose a client forever. But so you always have to be very honest with when you tell them something.
What patients, or were there any patients that had a lasting impression on you?
Oh, I imagine several there.
Without giving names, what were the circumstances?
One was about the client that apologized for his behavior because he had gotten. I was younger. I was in my mid-50s, and he became really disruptive. Actually, had seen a doctor that had treated him before. He was coming over to do an evaluation, and he jumped on the doctor, and I went out there and tried to help. Now, you have to know the doctor. This doctor could take care of himself. I was just kind of along the ride.
Right.
And once that was over, in a few weeks he got better. It was being discharged, and he had some property over in the cashier's office, and staff couldn't take him, so I walked him over there. And then on the way back, he brought up that incident. He said, "I'm so sorry I did that." And I said, "It's okay." I said, you've done well. That was your illness. I
Right.
said, stay on your medication. When you get in the outpatient clinic, listen to the doctor. And he's not been back. So that is, on the multiple disability unit, we had a young girl. I say young girl, she was in her early 20s. And at that time, it had been considered mild level of mental retardation. She just exacerbated everybody through fits, hollered, screamed, temper tantrums. As she got to do better, she actually got a job in our laundry, and it was in the summertime, and it was hot in that laundry because I remember coming out here when my mother was working in there, and it was hard work.
Right.
And she got to doing so well. When 2 days before she left, the staff in the laundry had a party for her. She's actually that client that was the worst client that became the very best client. And she
That's
made her
wonderful.
own discharge plans to fly up to a home in New England and saved her money, shipped her belongings up there. Her sister came out here, picked her up, and drove her to the airport. And I don't, in all the years I've been out here, I've had some bad clients that did start doing well, but that was the worst to the best.
That was the biggest transformation.
That's the biggest transformation I'd seen.
How are the hospital's practices and approaches to treating your clientele? How have those changed over the years?
I think they've become more patient-centered, trying to involve the patient more. When I first started out here, you didn't even have clients come into the treatment team meeting. The doctor would talk with them, then write orders. You didn't. In other words, the doctor made all the decisions. You didn't have a collective team come together and share things. But now you do. You have the patients, and the patients come in. When you do your treatment plan you do it with the patient, get their input into it, and so that's probably one of the biggest things in progression that we made out here. Is it basically, and I think it's called patient-centered treatment planning, and I think that's a big help. It makes them feel like they're a part, and they are. They're part of.
Of course.
They're
Right.
actually they're part of the treatment team.
Right.
And I have to try to sometimes remind some of my colleagues that their input is important.
So how have you coped with the emotional and psychological challenges of your job? You've got a difficult job to do. How have you dealt with that?
Well, a good friend of mine, he always says, when you leave, leave your backpack at the door. And he tells me I always take it with me because staff has my cell phone, and they can call me. I actually 2 years ago we were up in Ouray, Colorado, on a Jeep trail. Of course, I didn't get a signal up there. I got back down, and I could get my emails, and so I called the ward. I had somebody covering for me, but I called them, and I think I tried to tell my friend, I says, if it's something I can help to avoid something and de-escalate a problem, it doesn't matter where I'm at.
Right.
I'll do it. I feel comfortable doing that, and I would rather solve something 1,000 miles away than have it fester and have to come back to it later.
Well, that's a certain amount of ownership that you're taking of not only your job, your responsibility, but the facility, the clients. You're taking ownership over that, and that's maybe that's rare these days. What do you think has changed in your attitude versus maybe other people who leave their backpack at the door, so to speak?
Well, and not that they're not good, competent people. It's just their feeling is they have to. That's what works for them, and they believe that they are competent people that can cover for us. But I guess it's a sense that I have that I want to do the best I can, even if I happen to be off, or if it's even just on a weekend, to help in my client and help my team. And my team knows that they can always count on me. I think they appreciate me. I do. On a side note, that has nothing to do with the patients, but the ward is like for I don't know how many years now, 30 years. I would bring something to eat during the holidays, Thanksgiving and Christmas. Sometimes I'd smoke a turkey and bring it. I got more lately because they're going to have it anyway. I bring pulled pork, buns, chips, pickles, olives, and for them to have on Thanksgiving and Christmas because they're having to work. And I've been there before, having to work on a holiday. And I thought just a little bit of something makes them special.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah. And I've been blessed to have work with staff. They're far better than I am. Far better than I am. We are collectively a whole of what we are. And without them, I don't think I could have had a successful career out here.
What support systems does the hospital have now for staff, for employees that maybe weren't in place before?
Well, you know, our staff is open to help counsel with our own, get referrals if we need outside referrals for counseling. And sometimes that happens. They're available to talk with it and to, I guess, kind of sit back. Like if we have a death, or you have a death of a staff, or a death of a staff's family member, that can provide support. Our chaplain comes around frequently on the ward and visits with people. He's a very upbeat gentleman. But I think knowing that I think our staff has a sense that we can care for each other.
How has that changed over the years? Have you seen a progression, or has it always been that way?
It may have. I know I've seen it more as the years have gone by, and maybe I just become more aware of it. Obviously, I think our department is one of the best departments in the state. We've had some good directors. Our current director now is very good. She obviously tolerates me. But no,
Well, you're kind of an institution at this point, right?
At some point in time. I know my attending psychiatrist one time has stated that I can't leave until he does. He told me, he jokingly said he had a CME, a medical certificate filled out to commit me. And I said, well, I can become a client worker then.
That's good. How has working at the hospital influenced your perspectives on mental health generally and how mental health is dealt with today?
Oh, gosh. Well, basically, I have a better positive attitude about how things are going, and in a positive direction. Like I said, I think it's slower than I'd like it to be, but I think it has moved forward. I know that there was, and I can't remember the lady's name, but she worked for Dallas County MHMR on the MR side, and she had me sit in with her on a session she did about the mentally retarded people, and her program was they're more like us than they are different, and how she would work with the sheriff's department on how to handle that type of one. And she, to me, she was a pioneer in there. And talk about degrees. They're just something to hang up on the wall. She did not have a degree, but she experience went a long way. And I remember that day we rode around. She actually had a daughter in a group home, and I think that motivated her for her work. But she was super, and her work. And sitting in there, I could see the deputy sheriffs in there respond to her. And this was back in the early '80s. So before that, I think law enforcement has gotten improvement on how they deal with mentally ill. Yes, they're less likely to overreact and try to be more patient with them. It's not easy being a police officer.
No, wouldn't be.
No.
So you've been with the hospital for how many years now?
December the 5th was 53 years.
My goodness. Well, when do you think you will retire, and what is your retirement going to look like?
It's jokingly said that I'll probably die out here and they'll bury me up on the cemetery, which is okay.
That'd be okay with you?
Yeah. We have a doctor that's buried up there.
Is that right?
Yes.
Very good.
And I believe his wife is up there as well. If I was up there, I'd feel like I was with family. I don't know at this point in time. I would look at volunteering out here. I'm still active in my church, not as much as I was years ago. Both my sons are grown. We're somewhat, my oldest and his wife have divorced, so in some ways raising our granddaughter and grandson in some ways, but our grandson's graduating. I don't know. At some point in time, I need to retire so they don't run me off, I wouldn't think. But I will not be here when the new hospital is opened.
Oh, really?
I just don't see that. That's going to be at the end of this decade, and I'll be 80.
Right.
And my wife has said that and she's not ready to retire. When I retire, she's going to retire at the same time. So I may be waiting on her. I don't know.
So have you made or maintained any connections with former colleagues, people who worked out here over the years?
Yeah. I have, there's, 6 of us quarterly get together. We were actually, inauguration day, we met at Rockwall, at Lone Star 66 Cafe for breakfast and talk about things and how everybody's doing. I call some, of course, some of those have been more closest to over the years have passed away, or I've lost ways to contact them.
Right.
But there's that handful that I am able to stay in touch with, and we talk about things, talk some about the hospital, but how everybody's doing.
So if given the opportunity to do it all over again and work out here for 52 years, would you do it all over again?
Yes. Yep.
No hesitation?
No hesitation. I wouldn't change anything in my life other than we would like to have had a girl, but but that's beyond our...
Yeah, that's beyond the hospital's capacity.
Yeah. but as far as I wouldn't change a thing. Of working out here as summer help and coming to work on the ward, becoming a social worker, no. No. This is, I love my patients. I pray for my patients. If there's a difficult time, I pray. I don't pray with them, but I pray for them.
Yes.
And I lift them up, and I ask the Lord to help me help them.
Yes.
Because sometimes I run into which I think is a dead end, and I need help. And I just ask God. I said, God, show me the direction so I can help them. And 99% of the time, He does. Yeah.
Well, what are some insights or messages that you have for future generations about mental health care and your experiences? What can you offer future generations who are coming to work in the mental health field?
If you enjoy working with people and helping them, and you're not worried about making a lot of money, it's an uplifting job. Um, you know, and that's not to say that I've had headaches and difficulties, but the Lord has blessed me, and I thank Him for allowing me to be the person I am to help my patients out here. So it is, and I see that with the other social workers I work out here with. You know, without a doubt, they seem to all want to help their patients and do well. And so when I'm gone, this hospital is in good hands in the social work department. I have no doubt about that.
Very good.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you for agreeing to be interviewed. It was very enlightening, and we appreciate your sharing your experiences and remembrances with us.
I hope it's not too bad.
Not at all. Not at all. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thanks.